This is a topic on emergence of third world for third semester major students, as your examination is very near. So this is a very big topic. But I cut short it as much as possible so that you can remember little bit about the topic, and if necessary you can write answer about that. Later on I will enlarge the topic and I will give it. So if you study the map, the world map, you will never find that anything like third world countries are there. Third world countries actually emerged after 1950, not after 1950, actually after the Second World War, and from 1945 onwards, when the new when the colonial countries started getting independence. So those countries which are underdeveloped countries, which were at one time were the colonies of any of the one of the European powers, and who got independence, then who are underdeveloped countries, these are termed as actually third world countries. So not actually, the Great Britain was at that time the most important imperial power in the world, but not only Great Britain, other countries also had their colonies, like France, they have their own colonies, Netherlands, Portugal, Italy, and USA. Even USA also had its own colonies, for example in Philippine Island, etc. So all those European countries, they had their own colonies. And after the Second World War, and with the revival of the conception of nation state, and for the demand of the colonies, they got independence, and those countries were ruled by the European colonizer for many years, and that is why they followed some of the characteristics are actually visible among those countries. Although those third world countries are economically underdeveloped, and they are, some of the third world countries are, maybe they are in the Asia, most of the countries are in Asia, then Africa, then Oceania, then Latin America. So they are scattered throughout the world, but certain characteristics are very common among them. For example, for poverty is there, then high birth rate is there among those countries. They are economically dependent on the developed countries. Then mortality rate is also very high, standard of living is very low, illiteracy is literacy rate is also very low. So all these things are more or less the common characteristics of the third world countries. Actually what happened, the industrialized European countries, who were their colonial master, they actually have taken from these countries, what they have taken, raw materials, and they have also taken the manpower, and they actually established colonies in those countries to send their surplus population to the territory of these colonies. So they were exploited for many years, and that's why they are facing this type of problem. So in 1955, one conference took place at Bandung, and here our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru also played a very important role, and they actually instigated all other third world countries to join together and build up a strong forum, and they were little bit successful in this regard, and that is why the UN also ultimately gives status to this third world forum. Okay, in UN also nowadays the third world countries are playing a most significant role. And another thing is that you remember that First World War means the capitalist world. Then the Second World War, First World means the capitalist world. The Second World means earlier that the countries of East European countries led by Soviet Russia. Now with the disintegration of Soviet Russia, there is no question of Second World, and Third World are those countries which got independence after the Second World War, and who possesses certain characteristics which are common among themselves. And why these characteristics are common? Because those who were exploited them, the nature of exploitation were same. So the characteristics are same. So you remember one thing, that the movement that took place against the colonial master in various colonies throughout the world, the pattern of their movement may not be same. For instance, in some areas it may be peaceful method, some areas they have used forces, some area the colonial masters are very much arrogant and they have actually exploited the people very much. Whatever may be, the pattern of fighting or pattern of movement, freedom movement throughout the colonies are not same. It may differ from country to country, but ultimately all of them got independence. And here you remember one thing, that all the third world countries are not equally poor. Some of the countries are much more developed. For example, those Asian countries, these are very much developed countries. China is also moving very forward. India's position is also gradually improving, but among them some are least developed countries also, like Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Uzbekistan, Yemen, etc. These are very poor countries. Okay, so all the third world countries cannot be put into same categories. They also differ from one another and their problems also differ from one another. But the common problems still are facing by the third world countries I have discussed in one of my video regarding global south. So if you go through that video, you will get an idea about what the problem are facing by the global south. Global south means the underdeveloped country or the third world countries. And you remember one thing, that because of globalization and privatization and liberalization, all these things still are unable to solve the problem or meet up the gap between the rich country and the poor country. So liberalism may one time become failure, because still a gap is existed between the rich country and the poor countries. On the other hand, because of this globalization and because of this debt trap system, ultimately the colonies are nowadays facing new kind of problem, and a concept of neo-colonialism has developed. So from that standpoint of view, time may come again when the third world countries, they may put more importance on regional cooperation. They will establish their economic relations with the countries belonging to their categories, and may the capitalist country may find out their own allies in Europe and America. That type of situation may arise in near future, but still now the condition of the third world countries are not so much encouraging. Few among them, few are okay, they are enjoying a status which may be compared with the first world countries, but the others are still remain backward, and that is the problem which are facing by the economists and politicians nowadays. So thank you.